President Trump dumps his Secretary of Homeland Security. Democrats compete to shore up their woke credentials, and the Israeli election is in the home stretch. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Welcome back. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Guys, I'm so excited to be here this week. I mean, there's a lot going on this week, and there's a lot in the news. We'll get to all of it. Thanks, by the way, for people who continue to buy The Right Side of History, which continues to soar on the bestseller charts. Number 3 on New York Times bestseller chart this week in its second week after being number 1 in its first week. Continues to be at the top of the Amazon charts as well. Go pick up a copy of The Right Side of History. We're going to get to all the news in just a second because there's a lot of news that is breaking. First, let us talk about the fact that you could be healthier. Well, how could you be healthier? Well, one of the things that you could be doing is making sure that you get your daily dose of vitamins, the stuff that you actually need. Vitamins and supplements can be confusing. Persona takes the guesswork out of it. Here's how it works. You take a 3 to 5 minute assessment to find out exactly what you need. You get recommendations based on your goals, lifestyle, allergies, special diets, and prescription medications. And then you get convenient vitamin packets delivered to your door every single month. You can certainly find cheaper vitamins, but you'd have to pay 30% more to get the same quality in a bottled vitamin. This is the best value you can find. Persona checks for over 850 medications against their database of supplements they can recommend to ensure no negative interactions. They offer over 90 different supplements, creating 5 trillion possible combinations to personalize your recommendation specifically for you. Persona is always updating their questions and recommendations as new science comes out. They have the knowledge of 4 doctors, not just one, to help them stay cutting edge. Your personalized supplements are then put into packs divided by time of day. So supplements that help each other absorb are together. Ones that shouldn't be taken together are for another time of day. That also means that your energy supplements can be taken in the morning, your sleep supplements at bedtime, which is pretty clever. Right now, whether you want to sleep better, have more energy, or simply stay as young as you can, my listeners can go to personanutrition.com/Shapiro. That's PERSONA nutrition.com/Shapiro. Get 50% off your order today. Solid deal. Personanutrition.com/Shapiro. It's 5 minutes that can change your health. Personanutrition.com/Shapiro. It's really clever, and obviously they're doing a good job on the medical side, so go check them out. Personanutrition.com/Shapiro. Get 50% off your order at this very moment. Okay, so over the weekend, the big breaking news, the Secretary of Homeland Security is out. That'd be Kirstjen Nielsen. This had been coming for quite a while. There was unease with her inside high centers of the administration, and it was sort of unclear why. And I sort of feel bad for Kirstjen Nielsen because she did the best that she could with a policy and an administration that is really divided on immigration. President Trump wants to be incredibly harsh on the border, but then every time there's a bad story on the border, he immediately shies away from the bad story on the border. And that puts people like Kirstjen Nielsen in a really difficult position. Because he'll say to her, okay, I want a zero tolerance approach on the border. And she'll say, all right, well, you know what that means? That means we're going to arrest people. And under current law, that means we then have to release the kids to family members because we can't actually keep the kids in custody under a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling. We're just not allowed to do that under the Flores settlement. And so President Trump will be like, okay, do it. So she'll do it. And then there are a bunch of stories about family separation. And then he'll say, you know, this is really bad press. Let's not do that anymore. And then she says, well, that really only leaves us with one option, which is catch and release. And he says, okay, do it. And then there's catch and release for a while. And then there's a bunch of blowback from the right saying, well, why are we just picking these people up at the border and then releasing them to the interior? And then Trump is like, well, I don't like that either. This is bad. We need to be harsher at the border. The problem is that there are 2 serious issues at the border. One is the state of the border law. There are real problems with border law in the sense that right now, under the Flores settlement, if you arrest a family that is coming across the border, you cannot hold the kids in custody with the parents, and that means that you have to release the parents or you have to separate the parents from the kids. That is a problem that is currently implicit in the law, and that can be changed by Congress. That's something that the president should be working with Congress to change. Either the kids should be kept with the parents or they should be immediately deported, right? It should not be that we have to release illegal immigrants into the interior of the country to deal with the fact that they have kids. This is not a solution for the kids. It's not a solution for the parents. It's not a solution for the country. That is problem number 1. Problem number 2 is that we do not have sufficient funding to take care of all the people crossing the border. We spoke last week with one of the chiefs of Border Patrol down in the San Diego sector on a radio show. And he was saying that they are simply overwhelmed. Tens of thousands of people crossing the border. There's no place to put them. Congress has not allocated the funding. And that means that they have no choice but to catch and release. Well, President Trump is not famous for the buck stopping at his desk. Usually the buck stops at everyone else's desk. It's one of the really negative parts about this White House is that if you work for Trump, there is a very good shot that you get stabbed in the back at some point. I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but the reality is working in this White House is a very difficult job. It is an unrewarding job. It is one where the press will try to savage you. Kirstjen Nielsen's on her way out now. There are already members of the press saying she should never be hired again because she worked as Secretary of Homeland Security under Donald Trump. And any corporation that hires her is going to be subjected to the rage of the mainstream media. And people were tweeting this out yesterday, that basically her life should be ruined. You've heard them say the same about people like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, that after Huckabee Sanders leaves the administration at some point, or if the administration comes to an end, then she should be forbidden from working in the public sector. You see this in the private sector. You see the same thing with people who used to work for President Trump, like Sean Spicer. Once they are out, then they are persona non grata among the general public, and the media don't want them anywhere near anything that even remotely approaches power in the private sector. So it is unrewarding to work there because the president is very likely to blame you for stuff that he himself is responsible for because he has no coherent policy. And second, when you are ousted, then it's not like you get the gratitude of a nation for having served your country. Instead, it turns into, you served that bad guy Trump, we're going to make sure you never work again in this town. So you got to feel a little bit bad for Kirstjen Nielsen, even if you don't like how she has performed as Secretary of Homeland Security. And again, I fail to see how she has wildly underperformed as Secretary of Homeland Security, like what she could have done that should have been done extraordinarily differently without President Trump's approval. The New York Times reports Kirstjen Nielsen, the Homeland Security Secretary, resigned on Sunday after meeting with President Trump, ending a tumultuous tenure in charge of the border security agency that had made her the target of the president's criticism. I've determined that it is the right time for me to step aside, Nielsen said in a resignation letter. I hope that the next secretary will have the support of Congress and the courts in fixing the laws which have impeded our ability to fully secure America's borders and which have contributed to discord in our nation's discourse. Nielsen had requested the meeting to plan a way forward at the border, in part thinking she could have a reasoned conversation with Trump about the role, according to 3 people familiar with the meeting. She came prepared with a list of things that needed to change to improve the relationship with the president. Trump in recent weeks had asked Nielsen to close the ports of entry along the border and to stop accepting asylum seekers, which Nielsen found ineffective and inappropriate. And again, I'm not sure that she is wrong about this. Closing the ports of entry along the border was specifically designed, presumably, to reshift resources, to allocate resources from the ports of entry to the areas between the ports of entry where 90% of people are trying to cross. But the issue there, Nielsen was saying, is when people cross the border, the vast majority of them are looking for Border Patrol agents to turn themselves into so that they can claim asylum. So stop accepting asylum seekers means that you will actually be encouraging people to avoid Border Patrol agents, and they will simply continue crossing because there's a shortage at the border, and they won't turn themselves in to Border Patrol agents, which means no ankle monitors, no keeping track of them. And if you close the ports of entry, it is difficult to do that and still maintain open commerce. You could do it theoretically, but practically speaking, apparently this is quite difficult. While the 30-minute meeting was cordial, Trump was determined to ask for her resignation. After the meeting, she submitted it. The move came just 2 days after Trump, who has repeatedly expressed anger at a rise in migrants at the southern border, withdrew his nominee to run Immigration and Customs Enforcement because he wanted the agency to go in a tougher direction. Trump has ratcheted up his anti-immigration message in recent months as he seeks to galvanize supporters before the 2020 election, shutting down the government and then declaring a national emergency to secure funding to build a border wall, cutting aid to Central American countries, and repeatedly denouncing what he believes is a crisis of migrants trying to enter the country. He tweeted on Sunday night after Nielsen departed, he tweeted, quote, "Our country is full," which is in fact a different message than the message that he was saying in February, where he suggested that we wanted to have wide doors for immigration, right? It was going to be a big wall with big doors, is the way that he put it. Nielsen said she planned to stay on as secretary through Wednesday in order to assist with an orderly transition. The abruptness was unusual because DHS does not have a deputy secretary who would normally take the reins. The president said in a tweet that Kevin McAleenan, the commissioner of Customs and Border Protection, would take over as acting replacement for Nielsen. By law, the undersecretary for management, Claire Grady, is next in line to be acting secretary. The White House would have to fire her to make Mr. McAleenan acting secretary. People familiar with the transition said Grady says that she has no intention of resigning. Some of the people who are being looked at for DHS include Ken Cuccinelli, the former Virginia Attorney General, who fits the profile, apparently. And Nielsen has been pressured by Trump to be more aggressive in stemming the influx of migrant crossings at the border. Her entire time in the job was spent battling back suspicion from the president, even as he told people how he liked how she performed on television and enjoyed dealing with her personally. Apparently, he was skeptical of her because she had served under W, and also because she was close to John Kelly, who Trump basically got rid of, that former chief of staff. The president called Nielsen at home early in the morning to demand that she take action to stop migrants from entering the country, including doing things that were clearly illegal, such as blocking all migrants from seeking asylum, which you cannot do. Right? If somebody crosses the border and they find a Border Patrol agent, they do have the legal ability to seek asylum. You can't just say, "Sorry, didn't hear you. Sorry, guys. Nope. What would you say? You can't really do that to people who are crossing the border and seeking asylum, nor, frankly, do we want that, because there are people legitimately seeking political asylum in the United States. It is a long entrenched part of both our law and culture that people who are seeking political asylum should at least be heard out. She repeatedly noted limitations imposed on her department by federal laws, court settlements, and international obligations. Apparently, this really pissed off Trump. The president's fury erupted in the spring of 2018 as Nielsen hesitated for weeks about whether to sign a memo ordering the routine separation of migrant children from their families so that the parents could be detained. And again, she was hesitating because Trump was hesitating. If you don't recall at the time, it wasn't like Trump was full-scale go. Trump puts his people out there very often, and then he lets them take the bullet. And it's not just Secretary of Homeland Security. He did this to his own Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, just in the last couple of weeks. We discussed it on the show. He pushed a budget that included in it a defunding of the Special Olympics. And Betsy DeVos dutifully did what she was supposed to do. She went out there and she defended the budget, cutting money for the Special Olympics. And then Trump decided on the spur of the moment he didn't like the media coverage. And he went out publicly and said, you know what? We're putting that back in, funding for the Special Olympics. And there is Betsy DeVos left out there on the end of the branch, and Trump grinning and sawing off the branch behind her. It's very difficult to work for this president. In a cabinet meeting surrounded by her peers, Trump castigated her repeatedly, leading her to draft a resignation letter and to tell colleagues there was no reason for her to lead the department any longer. By the end of the week, she had reconsidered it and remained in her position, becoming an increasingly fierce supporter of his policies, including the family separations. And again, that's her reflecting the boss. Trump was split, and then Trump said, I'm not split anymore. And she said, okay, well, if that's her policy, that's your policy. Apparently, Trump and Stephen Miller, the president's top immigration advisor, have privately but regularly complained about Nielsen. Lou Dobbs has also encouraged Trump's negative view of her handling of the migrant crisis, according to the New York Times. Nielsen lost a powerful protector when John Kelly, her mentor, was fired at the beginning of the year. Multiple White House officials said she had grown deeply paranoid in recent months after numerous stories about her job being on the line. She had also supported the ICE nominee, Ronald Vitiello, that Trump just withdrew. Apparently, in early 2019, as the number of migrant families from Central American countries surged, the president's fury at Ms. Nielsen did too. He repeatedly demanded she cut off foreign aid to Central American countries, though the funding was the responsibility of the State Department, and she deflected his demands because she doesn't have the power to do that. One day after Nielsen traveled to Honduras to sign a regional compact with officials from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, Trump cut State Department funding for the countries. In recent days, the president made public moves to undercut her authority, leaking news he might nominate an immigration czar to assume oversight of the issue at the heart of Nielsen's department. Now, the media is trying to suggest that Nielsen had some sort of real difference of mind with President Trump. It's not that. It's that Trump has a difference of mind with Trump. Trump is all over the place on this issue. It makes it very difficult for his people to serve honorably in his administration. It's a serious problem. It is a serious problem. We'll get to more of this in just 1 second. First, warm weather season is basically here. Luckily, Tommy John, the most comfortable underwear on the planet, has the fabrics you need to stay cool, dry, adjustment-free. They've got so many new arrivals, prints, colors, patterns. You've got options this summer. Head on over to TommyJohn.com for all of their life-changing products. Both Tommy John's men's and women's underwear support a no-wedgie guarantee, comfortable stay-put waistbands, a range of fabrics that are luxuriously soft, designed to move with you, not against you. Not only does Tommy John have ridiculously soft loungewear for around the house, but they have all-new, insanely soft second skin polo shirts, reinventing casual comfort for guys who want to feel as great as they look. And for ladies, they've got the new Air Collection. It's made from lightweight, breathable fabric with seamlessly bonded edges. Tommy John is so sure you're going to love the fit and feel. It's all backed by their best pair you'll ever wear or its free guarantee. That means if you don't love that first pair, you get a full refund. Tommy John, no adjustment needed. Hurry on over to TommyJohn.com/Ben right now to get 20% off your first order. That is TommyJohn.com/Ben for 20% off. TommyJohn.com/Ben. Go check them out. It's not just their underwear that are fantastic. They've got all this other clothing for summer that is just as great. Go check them out right now. TommyJohn.com/Ben. Get 20% off your first order when you do. Okay, so as I say, a lot of the president's defenders are going to say that Kirstjen Nielsen was doing something deeply wrong here. He appointed her. This is the same sort of shtick we saw with former Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Trump appointed Jeff Sessions. One of the reasons he appointed Jeff Sessions is because Jeff Sessions was tough on crime, he was tough on drugs, he was tough on illegal immigration. And then Trump decided he didn't like him. And then instead of capping him, he kept him around for a couple of years. And then he let Sessions quietly sort of resign, sort of quit, sort of be fired. You see that with this president. He does this all the time. He goes after his own subordinates. Well, when you are the leader of a company or a country, when you're the leader of an administration, which effectively is just a company, the buck stops with you. That means you have to make the decisions about whether people are doing their jobs or not. And if you are randomly shifting, if you're careening all over the road like Beto O'Rourke on an off night, then it's going to be very difficult for the people in the back of the car to take credit for what exactly is going on. Trump's the guy with his hand on the steering wheel, not Christian Nielsen. So if you don't like the policy, that one stops at the top. Apparently, Nielsen never learned how to manage Trump, people familiar with their discussion said. He often felt lectured to by Miss Nielsen, which, again, is difficult because the president, the president doesn't know things, okay? He doesn't. He just has gut instincts. And sometimes that's okay because people around him are able to mitigate his harder edges and they're able to boost the stuff about him that's good. But it means that he is in constant conflict with the people around him. He's like a billiard ball just moving around that table. Apparently, Jared Kushner didn't like Nielsen. That came to a head recently as Kushner had inserted himself into the immigration discussions. Now, that's kind of odd because Kushner is not a hardliner when it comes to immigration. Kushner is much softer on illegal immigration. Remember, Kushner is also the guy behind the First Step Act. So the fact is that if you really believe that Nielsen was ousted for being too soft on immigration, what does Kushner have to do with anything? Trump often blamed Nielsen for the surge in migrant crossings, but the truth is that the widespread perception of her is that she was very harsh on illegal immigration. And that is that's going to be the perception of her after she leaves. So here is her letter. She issued a letter about all of this upon leaving. And here's what she said. She said, Mr. President, I hereby resign from the position of Secretary of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security effective April 7th, 2019. It has been my great honor to lead the men and women of the department as its sixth secretary. I could not be prouder of and more humbled by their service, dedication, and commitment to keep our country safe from all threats and hazards. I join all Americans in thanking them for their sacrifices and those of their families. I am immensely proud of our successes in transforming DHS to keep pace with our enemies and adversaries, whether it is in cyberspace or against emerging threats from new technologies. Despite our progress in reforming Homeland Security for a new age, I have determined that it is the right time for me to step aside. I hope the next secretary will have the full support of Congress and the courts in fixing the laws which have impeded our ability to fully secure America's borders and which have contributed to discord in our nation's discourse. Our country and the men and women of DHS deserve to have all the tools and resources they need to execute the mission entrusted to them. I can say with confidence our homeland is safer today than when I joined the administration. We have taken unprecedented action to protect Americans. We have implemented historic efforts to defend our border, combat illegal immigration, obstruct the inflow of drugs, and uphold our laws and values. We've responded decisively to record-breaking natural disasters and helped Americans rebuild. And she concludes, thank you again for the privilege to serve the American people and to lead the outstanding men and women of the Department of Homeland Security. Supporting these patriots has been the honor of a lifetime. Sincerely, Christian Nielsen. Now, as I say, the media are already jumping into she should never have another job, and it's really disgusting. Hey, Christian Nielsen has really not done anything here to earn the ire of the media in this way. She's enforcing the laws on the books. The laws suck. This is the problem. There are not the resources at the border necessary, and that is partly due to the media coverage of these issues. It was the media that declared for months on end there was no crisis at the border, then the government shutdown ends, and suddenly there's a crisis at the border. The media paid very little attention when Barack Obama was implementing family separations, and then when Trump did it, suddenly it was Trump's fault. When the reality is it's the Flores settlement and the Ninth Circuit's fault. All of this is media malfeasance, and Christian Nielsen has very little to do with this. I think she's a functionary, and I think she was a functionary trying to do the best that she could. And I think that she was ousted because the best that she could apparently wasn't good enough, but I failed to see where she was impeding Trump's agenda in any serious way, where Trump said, do X, and she said, I'm not doing X, and so he said, okay, you're fired. I don't see that at all here. I see a bunch of different statements and policies coming out of the White House. Trump himself doesn't know beyond sort of the broad outlines of what he wants, how he wants to implement, and he's not willing to take the hit when the bad press comes in. Now, again, I think this is aided and abetted by a media that wish to polarize a debate that really should not be polarized. We should all be on the same side of this immigration debate. We want to make sure that the people who are coming here are both treated humanely and deported if they do not have a legal claim to be here. And that should be done expeditiously. It should be done forthwith. Families should not be separated in that process. Right? I think we all have the same basic priorities on all of this. But the way the media have played this has led to the polarization of an issue which really should not be polarized. I think there is broad American consensus that we do not want an open border. I think there is broad American consensus that an open border is a bad idea. And despite the more woke members of the Democratic Party, I think even mainstream Democrats are not interested in an open border. I mean, Bernie Sanders is basically saying this, right? Bernie Sanders is, believe it or not, one of the saner Democrats on the issue of the border. Here's the senator, the socialist senator from Vermont and current frontrunner for the Democratic nomination saying, you can't have open borders, guys.
How would you deal with the social services connected with opening the borders, such as health care, medical care, and...
Who do you think is suggesting opening the borders?
Well, that you're an activist for opening for.
No, I'm not. I'm afraid you may be getting your information wrong. That is not my view.
Okay, I apologize. Thank you. Okay.
I think what we need is comprehensive immigration reform. That is not simply, you're quite right. If your point is you open the borders, my God, there's a lot of poverty in this world, and you're going to have people from all over the world. And I don't think that's something that we can do at this point. Can't do it. So that is not my position.
Okay, so again, that is Bernie being reasonable. We're all basically on the same page here, but the media have deliberately gone out of their way to make sure that we are not on the same page. I will give you an example. So there's a video that went around over the weekend by some account called Mark Mobility. I don't know who the hell Mark Mobility is. He put out a video that he cobbled together from C-SPAN, and then he tweeted out, Donald Trump on people asking for asylum. These aren't people, these are animals. This video that was retweeted by him currently has 55.2 million views. 55.2 million views. Here's the video that he put out.
We have people coming into the country or trying to come in. We're stopping a lot of them. But we're taking people out of the country. You wouldn't believe how bad these people are. These aren't people. These are animals. And we're taking them out of the country at a level and at a rate that's never happened before.
Okay, so that is the clip. That is 55.2 million views. And it led people like Pete Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, who's getting his kind of current media bump, to tweet out, you do not refer to human beings as animals. You just don't. Which is weird, because legitimately, like 2 weeks ago, Ilhan Omar referred to President Trump as an animal. But there's something bigger here, and that is that Trump didn't refer to people seeking asylum as animals. He referred to members of MS-13 as animals. Here's the entire clip.
We'll take care of it, Margaret.
Thank you. There could be an MS-13 gang member I know about. If they don't reach a certain threshold, I cannot tell ICE about them.
We have people coming into the country or trying to come in. We're stopping a lot of them. But we're taking people out of the country. You wouldn't believe how bad these people are. These aren't people. These are animals.
Okay, that is exactly right. Okay, I'm sorry, MS-13, their actual motto is what, rape, kidnap, kill? I mean, they legitimately are evil human beings. And this was taken out of context deliberately to make it look like Trump was dehumanizing people, normal people who are coming across that border, families coming across the border. And the problem is that Trump then reacts to that sort of slander by, in knee-jerk fashion, knocking off his own officials. There is a way for President Trump to deal with these accusations. There's a way for President Trump to weaponize this issue, but he is not doing it properly. I'll explain in just 1 second. First, let's talk about you looking like something out of a James Bond movie. The fact is that you are wearing an ugly suit. Okay, I hate to break it to you, your suit's ugly. You need a better suit. How can you get a better suit? Well, you should have a suit that is tailored to you. You think James Bond just goes buy something off the rack? Of course not. He goes to Indochino probably, or he should if he were a real person living in real life. Indochino is the world's most exciting made-to-measure menswear company. They make suits and shirts to your exact measurements for an unparalleled fit and comfort. If you're in the middle of planning a wedding, they have tons of options, but for those looking to outfit their wedding party, I love the wide selection of high-quality fabrics and colors to choose from, not to mention the option to personalize the details, including your lapel, lining, pockets, buttons. You can write your own monogram on it. Here's how it works. You can either visit a stylist at one of their showrooms. Indochino has 40 showrooms in North America. They'll take your measurements personally. I've done this over in Santa Monica. It's a blast. Or you can measure at home and shop online at Indochino.com. Choose your fabric inside and out. You can design the customizations. And then you simply submit your measurements with your choices online and relax while your suit gets professionally tailored and mailed to you in a couple of weeks. This week, my listeners can get any premium Indochino suit for just $359 at Indochino.com when you enter Shapiro at checkout. That's 50% off the regular price for a made-to-measure premium suit. Plus, shipping is free. Indochino.com, promo code Shapiro. Any premium suit, just $359, which is better than off the rack, and free shipping. That is an incredible deal for a premium made-to-measure suit. Once you go custom, you don't go back. Look better. Go check out Indochino.com and use that promo code Shapiro to get the special deal and let them know that we sent you. All right, so how should President Trump deal with all of this? President Trump should say, look, we're all on the same page here. We need changes to the law. Democrats are not providing changes to the law. None of us want people at the border to suffer. We also don't want open immigration. Give me the resources I need. If you do not give me the resources that I need, I have no choice but to implement certain policies, such as we are going to be using the resources that are necessary to us to hold families together. And if the court tries to intervene, that's just the way that it's going to be. Judicial supremacy is not a thing. The court does not get to decide how the executive branch acts this way. We are not going to start catching and releasing just because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is unwilling to do this. If you say we have to separate families, then I guess that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals can own that. I guess that we can separate families if we want to abide by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision. But we are not going to do catch and release. We're just not going to. And don't blame that on me. Blame that on the court. Blame that on the Democrats who won't solve this problem, who won't change the law. I'm not going to release millions of people into the interior of the country. I'm not going to release tens of thousands of people into the interior of the country without knowing where they are. This is not a policy I'm going to pursue. And we are going to ensure, I'm going to go down and I'm going to visit with the kids of the parents. I want to make sure that they are taken care of. I'm going to go down there and I'm going to stand on the border every day and make this into an issue. I'm going to campaign on the fact that there's a crisis at the southern border and they won't give us funding. But instead, because President Trump he's not willing to weather some bad headlines and then use those bad headlines as evidence that the Democrats don't know what they're doing and are actively obstructing policies that help the United States. Instead, we end up with this internecine warfare inside the administration, which, again, I don't know what he thinks Chris Kobach is going to do if he were suddenly the head of DHS. I don't know what he thinks Stephen Miller can do that Kirstjen Nielsen couldn't. I guess now they are discussing the possibility of renewed child separation policies. According to NBC News, Trump has for months urged his administration to reinstate large-scale separation of migrant families crossing the border. Trump's outgoing Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen resisted. And the reason she resisted, presumably, is because last time this happened, Trump turned on his own people and said, why are we doing all of this? According to two of the sources, Nielsen told Trump that federal court orders prohibited the Department of Homeland Security from reinstating the policy and that he would be reversing his own executive order from June that ended family separations, which, of course, is true. So it is confusion inside the policy that is the problem, not consistency of policy. Again, if the president sets a consistent policy and his own people don't follow it, then they should go. But if he's just all over the place, all he's doing is demonstrating a chaotic approach to an issue and letting the Democrats off the hook, because this one really is on the Democrats. We could solve this thing if we changed the law and provided the funding necessary to Border Patrol. We really could. Meanwhile, the Democrats continue to get their woke credentials in order. So over the weekend, the Democrat 2020 candidates continued to push as far left as humanly possible, led by Stacey Abrams. So Abrams has not declared. I'm not sure whether she actually intends to or whether she's just going to sit out there lobbying for a VP slot. It's pretty amazing for a woman who legitimately lost a race in Georgia, and her highest office has been the Georgia House of Representatives, to think so highly of herself that she thinks she can run for president and win. But who the hell knows? Maybe she can. Now she is out there in public saying on MSNBC that Georgia's abortion law, which protects babies in the womb after a heartbeat is detected, she's saying that abortion law is evil. That's how extreme the Democrats are on these issues.
I think Georgia has to realize that while we are enjoying an extraordinary boom in the film industry, there's nothing that says it has to stay here. And we have to be a state that is not only friendly to business, we've got to be friendly to the women who work in these businesses. You should not have to worry about your ability to control your bodily autonomy because the governor has pushed such an abominable and evil bill that is so restrictive. It's not only bad for morality and our humanity, it's bad for business. It's bad for morality and humanity. I'm sure it's bad for Planned Parenthood's business. This is how extreme Democrats are on the issue of abortion. Abortion till point of birth. And if you pass a bill trying to protect babies after a heartbeat is detected, then this makes you evil. I mean, that is a pretty reversed morality. But I guess this is where the Democratic Party currently is. And then you have Bernie Sanders. And Bernie comes out over the weekend and he says, you know what? It shouldn't just be that if you are a prior criminal and you have cleared your record, that now you should be able to vote again. You've done your time. Now you get to vote again. Bernie says felons should be able to vote while they are in prison. While they are in prison. So you murder somebody, you should still be able to vote while you are in prison. You defrauded the government. You embezzled from the government. You should be able to vote while you're in prison, according to Bernie Sanders.
We got 2 million people in jail in this country, and a number of them are in jail for felonies. Many states say, okay, we're putting you away for a long period of time. You're going to pay a heavy price for that. But we're also taking away your right to participate in a democratic society. You can't vote anymore. People who have felonies should be able to vote, and I strongly supported that. In my state, what we do is separate. You're paying a price. You committed a crime, you're in jail. That's bad. But you're still living in American society, and you have a right to vote. I believe in that. Yes, I do.
That's insane. I'm sorry, that's crazy. You're an actual felon, and he's saying while you're in jail, you have the right to vote? While you're in jail? I'm somewhat of a fan of Kantian ethics. I do not know how you have the categorical imperative applied here. Let's assume that everybody who's a criminal, the criminals got to decide who would actually be in charge of the government. You think they might vote to relax, for politicians who pledged to relax some of the criminal laws? Like, this is insane. I mean, they're now proposing that we lower the voting age to 16 and let all the criminals vote. I can't imagine how this will go wrong, guys. I think this is all going to be great. Man, Bernie Sanders, that guy's the front runner for the Democratic nomination. It's wild. Even the so-called moderates in the Democratic Party are not, in fact, moderates. Tim Ryan, who is a congressperson from Ohio, from an extraordinarily blue-collar district, he should be running on the principle that he's going to be a pragmatist and a centrist, and he's going to be able to bring everybody together in the name of blue-collar folks everywhere. Instead, he's out there mirroring the Bernie Sanders Medicare for All routine.
I've been a supporter of single payer, but I think if we can get it down...
But you also support the Affordable Care Act.
I did, because that was moving the ball down the field. That was providing more health care for more people, making it more affordable.
So you want both?
If we... I'm sorry?
You want both options? How does that work?
Well, when you're sitting there negotiating, I can't negotiate with you right now with the House and the Senate and the White House, but I want more people to have more affordable coverage. I want there to be some kind of public option where middle-class people who work hard and pay by the rules can get some help so they're not getting squeezed by the pharmaceutical companies and the healthcare companies. That's what I want.
I do love that Tim Ryan is now openly admitting it. I'm old enough to remember when the proponents of Obamacare said, no, this isn't the first step toward nationalized healthcare. And we were like, yeah, you guys are lying. Well, it turns out they were lying, and now they're sort of admitting that they were lying. Now, I will say that the worst statement of the weekend was not even made by Bernie Sanders, who says felons should be able to vote while they are in prison, or Stacey Abrams, who says that abortion laws that protect the unborn are evil. The worst statement of the weekend in its own way was Pete Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, who I've found to be an interesting candidate with interesting ideas. We've invited him on the Sunday special. He initially expressed interest, and then he started to gain in the polls, and now it's like, well, I won't touch people across the aisle with a 10-foot pole. In any case, I have to show you what Pete Buttigieg said, because it is a polarizing statement that I think will be largely ignored. We'll get to that in just a second. First, you have to go over to dailywire.com and subscribe. When you subscribe, you get so many goodies. I mean, we work our fingers to the bone over here for you, our subscribers. For $9.99 a month, you get not only the rest of this show live, you also get an additional 2 hours of the show every single afternoon. You get to ask us questions, not only in the mailbag, but sometimes during the show, we take live questions during the breaks. Also, you get our Sunday special on Saturday. So you could have seen our fantastic Sunday special with Andrew Yang, 2020 Democratic candidate. You could have seen that on Saturday and seen the material behind the paywall. I mean, there's all sorts of great stuff that happens when you subscribe. And for $99 a year, you also get this, the very greatest in beverage vessels. Look at it, that leftist Steers hot or cold tumbler. Feel the power course through you when you actually hold the leftist Steers hot or cold tumbler. Anyone who has one can tell you how wonderful it is, how it is their most prized possession. How some have traded their kidneys for this sort of thing. Well, you don't have to. All you have to do is pay $99 a year, which is cheaper than the monthly subscription, and go check that out right now. We have all sorts of great stuff that is coming for you, too, like additional benefits for subscribers that we are working on. Can't tell you about them yet. I can tell you they are awesome. All of that is coming soon, so go subscribe. Also, go check us out at YouTube. Go check us out at iTunes. Make sure that you download our Sunday specials, because those are really, really good, and we have some great ones that are coming up in the very near future. So go check all that stuff out. We are the largest, fastest growing conservative podcast and radio show in the nation.